Rabbanim Beit Din. Before us today is a case brought by Shayna, daughter of Leib, a man suffering of Alzheimer's disease who recently had a heart attack. Because Shayna was authorized by her father to make decisions on his behalf, the doctors have asked her to pick a treatment option. Assuming that the options are presented with a consensus of doctors of the highest level, we will discuss the risks and rewards and the direct effect of halacha on each of the options. I would now like to invite Shayna to come before this Beit Din.
Boker Tov Kavod Beit Din. I am Shayna and I am the primary caregiver for my father, Leib. You have heard about the sad and perilous situation he is in medically. My dad's well-being is one of my top priorities, and I want to make sure I do what's best for him. When I heard that the surgery he would need could have a 30% risk of death, I was concerned. Dad never gave me specific instructions on what to do in a situation like this, but I know he'd want me to act in accordance with the halacha. This is a very emotional issue for me, and I'm concerned that my position as Leib's daughter would compromise my ability to make an objective medical and health decision. I know that I am responsible for the final decision, but I would greatly appreciate whatever guidance this Beit Din can offer in helping me to decide. Toda rabah.
What should Ms. Goldstein do in this situation that would prove halachically and ethically just for the assurance of her father's survival? She has a responsibility to choose the best option for Leib. Any form of medical care that can provide a chance to save a life or can heal the patient is what Ms. Goldstein should be obligated to request. But if a suggested medication cannot heal, then Ms. Goldstein has no right to choose this and put his father through any more treatment. The life of an individual is of utmost importance, as we are created b'tselem Elohim. It is imperative that Ms. Goldstein seeks therapeutic help for Leib to save his body from pain and death, and to preserve the body and soul if possible. Rav Aharon.
Toda Rabbi Don. Ms. Goldstein has three options to choose among. One, she may authorize the bypass procedure, a surgery which has a 60 to 70% chance of long-term survival. However, this operation also carries a 25 to 30% risk of death. As stated in Shemot 21:19, "Im yakum v'hit kalef b'chutz al mishonto, v'nakeh rak shuto yiten v'rapo yirpeh." Many rabbinical scholars agree that the human being is required to protect his or her own body and take whatever steps necessary to ensure one's survival. As the eminent posek Rav Feinstein addresses in Yigrot Moshe, Hoshed Mishpat 73:1, if there's even a safek rapot of survival with the bypass procedure, Ms. Goldstein is required to take the chance of preserving life.
But if preserving life is the most important thing, wouldn't it be better to leave my father as he is? This surgery could kill him immediately. He'll probably live at least a few more days on the IABP.
That's correct. The second treatment option is to elect not to pursue any further measures and to leave the IABP in place, but it is unlikely to last more than a week. Doing so would also require ongoing sedation and leaves Leib vulnerable to further complications. To answer your question, we learned from Yigrot Moshe, Hoshed Mishpat 274:5, that one must attain the ability to prolong short-term life in order to preserve and enforce for the potential of long-term survival, even if doing so would be at a significant risk, as is the case with this bypass surgery.
Furthermore, Rabbi Dan, Rav Yaakov Reisher in Shvut Yaakov 375 encourages Rav Feinstein that if it is possible that by means of treatment he can cure the patient of his illness, then we certainly do not concern ourselves over fleeting life. Since he would certainly die, we cast aside the certainty and grasp at the possibility that he may be healed. The bypass surgery has the potential to the greatest extent to restore Leib's home. It is the only option that will enable Leib to leave the hospital and return home.
We're not suggesting that surgery is the correct option in every situation. Rav Moshe Sofer and Khatam Sofer, Yoreh Adeh, number 76, cautions that we must not take a procedure that has minimal chance of curing the patient. But in our case, the bypass surgery has more than 50% odds of success, making it mandatory under Rav Feinstein's ruling.
Do I get any say in the matter?
It's true that we must consider the issue of patient autonomy, which does impose itself on the matter. In Yigrot Moshe, Hoshed Mishpat 274, Rav Feinstein argues that a terminal patient who can be given life-lengthening medication still retains the autonomy to reject treatment if he perceives undue harm. But in our case, Leib is incompetent and thus unable to reject treatment.
Ms. Goldstein, you are Leib's healthcare proxy. So far, you have not indicated any extraneous harm that will befall your father were the operation to be performed. Do you see any such harm now?
No, Rav Aharon, and I do feel comfortable deferring my decision to this Beit Din. I understand what you're arguing in favor of the bypass procedure, but are there any reasons why we need to specifically reject the option of just leaving the IABP in?
No absolutely prohibited reason exists, but preserving and preventing deterioration is an important halakhic principle, which is exemplified in Dvarim 4:9, where it states, "Rak yishamer lecha u'shmor nafshecha me'od, pen tishkach et advarim asher ra'u einecha." Remember, electing to do nothing puts your father at an increased risk for potentially fatal complications such as gastrointestinal bleeding and intracranial hemorrhage. Rambam concurs that we must preserve life and avoid deterioration, which is exemplified in his Mishnah Torah, Rotzeach 11:4, and his commentary on the Mishnah, Nedarim 6:8. Ultimately, it is your moral imperative to extend your father's life.
I see, Rabbi John. Rabbi, you said there were 3 treatment options. What's the third one?
You may choose to remove the IABP and treat your father's heart disease with medication. In this option, your father will not live more than a few months and has a greater than 50% chance of dying within 30 days.
That sounds like a good compromise. My father would probably live longer if he did nothing, and it comes at a decreased risk. Doctors also told me this option would allow for him to be awake. Is it possibly permissible?
Almost definitely not. First of all, taking out the IABP is analogous to switching off a life-saving device, such as a respirator. More importantly, Baba Kama 85A asserts that when we cannot heal the patient, we have no reshut l'rapot.
Moreover, Shvu Yaakov, Orach Chaim 113, emphasizes that we must not give medication to prolong the dying process. And it states that if physicians have medication that cannot heal a patient but can prolong the dying process, we should not intervene.
In conclusion, we encourage Shayna to continue to act for her father's best interests, to restrict her from pursuing the option of removing the IABP and medicating Leib's heart disease, as this directly extends the dying process without providing hope for a cure. This leaves us with the options of either performing bypass surgery or abstaining from further treatment. The halakha mandates that Shayna proceed with bypass surgery due to its permissible risks and high benefits. The question of Shayna's autonomy on behalf of her father remains, but since we have seen nothing to suggest that the surgery would cause Leib undue harm beyond his imminent death, we counsel Shayna that this is the correct option for her to pursue. Toda rabah.
I'm struggling a little bit with your discussion on the third option, so to speak. And I just want to say also, in terms of you, that as a physician, at least to the best of my knowledge, I'm not a cardiologist, to me, the issue of taking out leaving the IABP in or taking it out, and then medicating, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. In other words, you can let the IABP stay until it doesn't work anymore, take it out and give medication. But my struggle is that you say it's halakhically not permissible. Now, again, I would put aside that there's an option of surgery which we had a different outcome from. But let's assume that for some reason this was appropriate, or it could be appropriate. What about the fact that even if the medication doesn't prolong his life more than remaining a Chai Shah, what about the possibility that the medication improves how he feels? You know, it treats his symptoms. I mean, a lot of things we do in medicine do that, and in that case, would the halacha perhaps look at it a little differently than the way you described it?
While the medication might manage his symptoms temporarily, it still will allow his heart to slowly deteriorate, so it does not have any hope of curing him, only of supporting his condition as it is and as it slowly continues to degrade. Essentially, the halakha walks a fine line between, on the one hand, wanting to always preserve life, and on the other, not to prolong the dying process. Because this medication would only extend my father's life for a few months at most, it does not remove him from the category of being a trefa, and especially since we have the option of surgery, which could allow him to live for a much longer amount of time, this option is not preferable and not permissible because it does not provide hope for a cure, and therefore we do not have the right to continue to attempt to heal.
And may I add that we learned from Baba Kama 85A that when we cannot heal a patient, we have no sanction to practice medicine. We should let our opposed. That's what makes us impermissible.
I question this only because there are a lot of treatments we give people in medicine that are not curative and may not prolong their life more than a year, yet we do it anyway. So that's why I'm just questioning the absoluteness of what you say. It's not permissible, almost like at all, as opposed to given the choice of the surgery, that's a different conversation. But on its own, standing alone, I'm struggling with your conclusion. Based on the way we did it.
Well, Shayna has not indicated any extenuating harm before her father, so we're coming to the conclusion that the third option, taking out the IABP and medicating, is not a good option, because if we're taking out the idea of patient autonomy, because pain is not immediately relevant to this case, then the third option becomes not converting a good amount of benefit as is needed by Moshe and other rulings on this case.
Now, you say that you're not permitted to practice medicine and to heal, but one of the sources that you have in your decision quotes Leib Moshe saying that in a different context, this is on medication, that physicians should be consulted. But yet your decision does not involve consultation with any physicians at all. This is purely based on a halachic view. Can you reconcile that distinction?
Well, as the Beit Din noted, they make their decision with the assumption that it is based on the consensus of doctors at the highest level. Doctors have presented me with the three options that they believe would be the most viable and the best to consider. So while we did not consult doctors directly, I, in considering my father's health, have spoken with doctors, and these are the options they presented.
I don't have a question. I just want to commend you on your, I don't want to say performance, that's the wrong word, but I mean, the sources at your fingertips by heart. That's exceptional. Well done.